I have spent the last year working on this one video. It's a recipe of how to make your own chicken feed, and there is nothing else like it. Make sure and stay for the last 2 minutes because I show a DIY feeder that works really well for this. And as always, subscribe. Hi, this is Amy with Revolutionary Chicken. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a process and a recipe I've developed over the past year to feed my chickens. The chickens seem to love it. It costs a little bit less and I think it's healthier for them. So why would I say it's healthier? Okay, so the processes I use are both sprouting and fermenting. And both of those different things add great things to the mix. Some of them are a little bit different. When you sprout and you ferment, you're decreasing the anti-nutrients or phytates. Okay, so I had no idea what that meant. What it means basically, phytates are compounds that bind to the minerals in your chicken's feed, and so it makes them less available for the chickens to digest. So minerals such as calcium, copper, iron, manganese, magnesium, zinc, all those things harder for the chickens to get to. So if you can reduce the phytates, you can increase the minerals or good things that the chickens need. Also, fermenting and sprouting partially digests the protein, so when the chickens get to it, the amino acids are more readily available, bioavailable, so they can get them. So they can get more protein from the same amount of feed or even less feed. The other thing that fermenting and sprouting does is that it boosts the antioxidant levels of the food. One advantage that sprouting has is that it dramatically increases the vitamin levels. So your C vitamins, B vitamins such as thiamine, niacin, riboflavin go way up. And then if you ferment your feed, the probiotics go way up. So all these are great things and beneficial for our chickens. So I was really sold on sprouting because of the health benefits you get from germinating seeds. But then I realized you can't sprout everything. For example, I was sprouting whole peas and whole corn for my chickens only to find out they don't really like sprouted peas and corn. And they liked split peas and cracked corn. So I decided, okay, if I'm going to use those, I'm going to put those in a different group that I'm going to ferment instead of sprout. And then they loved it. Another seed that's not a good candidate for sprouting is flaxseed. When you pour water on flaxseed, it becomes a gooey, sticky mess. It's not easy to sprout. And so I tried those in the fermenting group as well. And flaxseed is great because it has so many health benefits and so high in protein. But guess what? My chickens would not eat the flaxseed. They were leaving that in the bottom of their feeder every day. And I was wasting so much money because it's so expensive. And guess what? They're not getting the protein if they don't eat it. So yeah, I took that out of the mix as well. I wish I hadn't bought the 50-pound bag, but hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. So this is my sprouting mix. The ratio is 5 to 1 to 1. Hard red wheat, which is very high in protein, whole oats, and barley. So 5 cups hard red wheat, 1 cup whole oats, and 1 cup barley. And that works really well for sprouting. This is my fermenting mix. I use equal parts cracked corn, split peas, and black oil sunflower seeds. Now I could have put my black oil sunflower seeds in this mix because they will sprout and the chickens do like them, but the proportions I wanted were the same as the proportions for the split peas and cracked corn, so I just went ahead for ease and just threw them in this mix. So it's 1 to 1 to 1. Okay, and I use 1 cup of this per day and 1 cup of my fermenting mix per day for 7 chickens. Okay, there are a couple things we're going to add to round out our chickens' diet. The first thing is chickens need more calcium, so we're going to give them oyster shells. It's important to give them oyster shells in a separate container, not mixed in with their food, so they can get however much they want. Somehow, chickens just know how much they need, so it's important to put it in another container. Some people think that you can just grind up your chicken's own eggshells and just give them that for their extra calcium. And while that is good to give to them, they actually need 2 to 3 eggshells worth of calcium each day that they lay an egg. So it's just not enough. Another thing we should give them is grit. Grit is essentially just the tiny rocks that they eat that go in their gizzard and help them to break up their food since they don't have teeth. And so I have these little containers. These are on my website, revolutionarychicken.com, so you can give your chickens the oyster and the grit that they need. Okay, another thing is we're gonna round out their vitamins and minerals. So for that, I have this little container that has 2 parts brewer's yeast and 1 part kelp flakes and then a little bit of salt. So my recipe is 2 cups brewer's yeast, 1 cup kelp flakes or kelp granules, and then 1 teaspoon of salt. And I mix that in and I put 1 tablespoon of this in their feed. And finally, we're gonna give them a little protein boost by giving them fish meal. And this fish meal is 68% protein, so a little bit goes a long way. I put 1 tablespoon of this into their feed, and the feed goes from being 17% protein to 17.9% protein. This fish meal is available on my website, revolutionarychicken.com, and I believe it's quite a bit cheaper than anywhere else you can find it. Okay, sprouting might seem like it's a big deal and it's hard. It is so easy. You take a glass jar, you pour your sprouting mix in. So here's my, sprouting mix. I do a cup of this and I let it sit for the rest of the day. So I do it in the morning, let it sit. In the evening, I dump it out. I take one of these lids. This is a mesh lid. Take it off the one that's ready to feed for my chickens the next day. Put it on this one and dump it out. I just put it upside down on my tray so that the water can continue to drain out. And then for the next 2 days, I rinse it in the morning, rinse it in the evening, same thing, and that's done. Okay, then we have fermenting. Nothing could be easier. I use 2 peanut butter jars, literally peanut butter jars, and I just drill a hole in the top of each one so the gases can escape. And basically, I put a cup from my fermenting mix. I fill it up a little bit more than double with water, and then that's it. I just put it in my cupboard. If I do that on a Monday morning, I'm gonna use it on a Wednesday morning. This would be my Tuesday, Thursday. And when I feed it to them, I pour it into like a sieve, a very fine sieve, and then I just pour it on top of my sprouts. And you might wonder why I'm not doing it every 3 days, because a lot of people recommend 3 days. Well, when you're fermenting, you'll notice on the top that you get this white layer. It's called calm yeast, and it's harmless, it's fine, it's not mold, it's normal. But that gets a little pungent smelling by the 3rd day. And just the whole thing is, to me, a little bit icky on the 3rd day. So I like to do it on day 2. And really, it's kind of like day 3 because I don't wash these out. I just rinse them. And so the stuff on the edges gives it a head start. So I feel like 2 days, we're good. All right, let's talk about price. So in order to understand the price difference of what you're making versus what you would be paying for if you bought it in the store, you need to understand exactly how much do chickens eat when you buy food from the store. And if you look that up, that comes to 1/4 pound of feed per day. So if I go to the store and I buy, say, a 50-pound bag of layer feed for $18, that comes to 36 cents a pound. Now, I have 7 chickens, so they would eat 1.75 pounds per day at 36 cents a pound. That's about 63 cents. So if I purchased my food, I would be spending 63 cents a day. So how much do I spend when I make the food? Well, a very handy tool that helped me with this is a spreadsheet that I could download from the blog called Garden Betty. And in that spreadsheet, I could input all of my different ingredients, how much each one cost, how much I was using of each one, and then it would tell me what the entire protein value was, how much fat was in it, and also how much it costs per day. So I am spending 51 cents a day. That includes all of the feed plus the kelp and the brewer's yeast and the fish meal. So it is 20% less than what I would be spending if I got it in the store. 63 cents a day versus 51 cents a day. That's not insignificant. And the chickens love it. So obviously they're not eating a 1/4 pound per day, but it's okay because they're getting more nutrition from less feed. And if I tried to give them more, like if I gave them 2.5 cups, they can't eat that much. They'll just leave it in their feeder. So now let's go out and we'll feed them, and I'll show you the best way to give this feed to them.
Okay, ladies. Here you go. So this is really the best way to give your chickens the sprouts and fermented food. This is basically a rain gutter. Everyone can line up and eat from it, and they don't spill from it because you can adjust how high you put it, and it has a nice deep trough. You can get it on my website, revolutionarychicken.com, but you can also just make your own. You can go to any hardware store and get a rain gutter and the ends. I have these S hooks that it mounts on there. It mounts on any hardware cloth, so it works really, really well. So obviously it's a little bit easier just to put some store-bought feed in a no-waste feeder and forget about it, and I have those too. But it's also really nice to be able to give your chickens something that they love. It's like offering your kids chocolate cake for breakfast, but it's really good for them. And so I'm just gonna keep doing this.